Here and all right, Chris, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
We did it. We had
This
some
is
technical
cool.
issues. I see we got a bunch of people already logged in. So why don't we do a quick introduction of ourselves, and then we'll dive into topics. Anyone else who's watching, we encourage you to leave a comment or question along the way, and we'll see where this takes us. So, Chris, why don't you kick it off?
Oh, fine. Put the pressure on me. Well, I'm Chris Hall. I don't know. I'm a Jeep Wrangler 4xe nerd. Kind of taken it to the extreme. Created the Jeep 4xe fans Facebook group, and you got the door shut on you, by the way.
Yeah.
But created the Jeep 4xe fans Facebook group in, gosh, I want to say that was late 2019, and I know the 4xe didn't come out till then, but I started nerding out about the 4xe in 2016 when Jeep announced at the LA Auto Show that they were going to have a plug on a Jeep Wrangler, and that was something I had wanted for years. So yeah, it's an old group at this point, and I also
the oldest on the internet for that matter.
It really is, and
Yep.
and we were old enough. This is just, I don't know. We don't need to go down these rabbit holes, but old enough that we had some executives at Jeep and Stellantis exchanging content that we were posting because we didn't have anything to post. We were just like, there was like maybe several hundred of us that were in the group early on, and we were just posting stupid memes because we didn't have anything to post. But I found out later through somebody on the inside that some of the execs were sharing posts for what we were doing. So it's kind of
plenty
cool.
of content now, right?
Oh, plenty of content now. And I guess my other nerd thing is I started the Wrangler 4xe YouTube channel. So that's
Yep. So yeah, and for myself, I learned how to drive stick on a Wrangler. I mean, I've owned Wranglers pretty much since the day I had my license. Everything from a TJ up to I've got a 47 CJ2A. I built my son a Jeep bed that had working headlights and taillights and soft top,
cool.
and a winch on it. That went viral when he was about 2. So Jeep has been in my blood since forever. Yeah. Kind of like you, I think, Chris, you're kind of the same way. You're big into tech.
Yeah.
So when the 4xe came out, it was like this unknown, and like I didn't know a lot about it at the time. And I was certainly an early adopter. And it was one of those things that it made sense from a financial standpoint for multiple reasons, which you don't need to get into. And then just love Jeep, love the brand, and certainly love the product. So I also started, I have a page called Jeeps on the Run, as well as the 4xe enthusiast page. So depending what one you're on, if you follow our Jeeps on the Run page, in fact, shameless plug here real quick, but jeepsontherun.com, we actually are on our 12th year of donating to Toys for Tots. We've donated over $2 million to Toys for Tots, and we've become the largest donating group to Toys for Tots in Northern Illinois. Wow. And huge thanks to our connection with the Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Fox Lake. They're on their 5th Jeep that they're donated to us. So December 1st, we were raffling off a brand new 2024 Wrangler JL that you can buy tickets for. $20 a ticket. 100% of the ticket funds come back to Toys for Tots. And we only sell 3,000 tickets. So your odds are really, really good.
Wow.
And we support not-for-profit charities. And Chris, I know we supported one of your missions. So it's a great thing if you're in the northern suburbs of Chicago. We get people that come from all over for this thing. So come check it out, jeepsontherun.com. I'll say enough about that. I'm sure we can dive in here. And guys, if you have questions along the way, chime in, and we're watching them on the side. Hello to everyone. I see the comments. So we'll dive in. I think let's talk about common misconceptions of the 4xe, because I think there's a lot of them. And I'll start off with a few things. I'll go through the bullet points, Chris, and then maybe we can come back and circle to them. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. I had to, since you included your Jeep criteria or your professional, whatever you want to call it. I had a 78 CJ5, 81 81 Scrambler resume. That's what I was looking for. 78 CJ5 that had more rust holes than metal. Flipped it off a telephone pole, knocked this tooth out. Had an 81 Scrambler. Regret to this day selling it, but I couldn't afford to put the money into it that it needed to get it back to where it needed to be. And then I had a 95 Wrangler that I bought new. And then I went 21 years between Jeeps. So that's my whole.
It's always a
resume.
fun fact. Go into an auto parts store and ask for parts for a 96 Wrangler. See what happens, because there wasn't a 96 Wrangler.
Yes. And see who in the comments knows why that's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, so the common misconceptions of a 4xe, you know, and Chris, you do a really nice job of this one, is the 49 miles per gallon E, and that can fall into two categories: misconceptions and some things that dealerships do wrong. The other, a couple of bullet points is when the battery's dead, the vehicle's dead. The 25 mile range seems short. The 4xe isn't a real Jeep. You know, it's a Barbie Jeep. You know, all the negative that comes with that.
Whatever.
Yeah, right. And and that you know, the 4xe. I think a lot of people confuse it that it's not an EV, and that's why it gets this range.
Yes.
What is a hybrid, right? So there's a lot to unpack there, but maybe you quickly talk about the 49 mile per gallon E, and I don't know if we need to go and we could probably talk about that for an hour in itself, but
oh gosh, yes.
I think just a quick touch on that would be important.
Yeah. So, and that's one of my, I get a little critical at Jeep at marketing that number. And here's why. MPGE was developed so consumers could have an apples to apples kind of comparison between, like, let's say you had, can't even think of an example of a car that's both electric and gas. Okay, I had one. I had a 2013 Smart electric drive. And the Smart, and yes, that's a geeky little car, but that was the car I had before the Jeep. But the Smart was the only manufacturer on the planet at one point that had a gas version and an electric version of all of their vehicles. Of course, they only had two models, but their gas version was rated at, like, let's see if I can remember these numbers, like 45 miles a gallon, but the electric version was rated at like 102 mpge. So that was supposed to let you see how much more efficient the electric version was with how it uses its energy, and give you an apples to apples comparison. Unfortunately, too many people see MPG and they stop. And
it's the big number on the window sticker, right?
It is. And unfortunately, the people who create the Monroney sticker have created their own confusion. Now, luckily, they've colored it a little different, so it should get your attention that it's different. But it's a plug-in hybrids get the two efficiency ratings. They get the one when they're in electric mode and one when they're in a hybrid mode. And I don't mean hybrid buttons. I mean I don't mean when you're selecting the mode on the buttons. I mean how it's operating. If it's under just electric propulsion, it's an MPGE rating. And if that gas engine is running and providing propulsion, it's an MPG rating. And unfortunately, a lot of dealerships don't understand how to sell a plug-in hybrid. And
I'm going to pause you there too, because here's something interesting that I've had questioned on my YouTube channel in the past couple of weeks, because we're getting to where they're the age, if you will, that there's a lot of used ones on the market now, right? First time used ones. And now you're seeing comments that they're coming to, and I know they come to your channel as well, that they're looking because they're getting sold at doesn't matter, a Toyota dealership or a Chevy dealership. And we don't even have, I say this not negatively, but some of our own Jeep dealerships don't have the confidence in the product. And then they get sold at a non-Jeep dealership. That customer really is at a loss because they truly aren't informed when they purchase this vehicle. Now, some are on the pages before they shop, and they probably know more than that salesperson. But that's another reason that 49 miles per gallon E is an issue in the way it's handled. Now, can you get that number? Sure, but the how we'll talk about in a little bit.
Right. I think one thing that's comical, I have on my Facebook app, I'll type in 49 MPG every once in a while just into the general search, and I'll go and I'll hit posts, and I'll go and I'll set it to where it's only showing me my recent posts.
Yep.
And you'll see a Honda Accord, Honda Prius. You'll see all these other vehicles, and then you see a Jeep Wrangler, and I'm going, it would be a miracle of engineering to get 49 miles a gallon out of a Jeep Wrangler. And I can't believe more people don't process that a little bit differently. And it's comical when you do the scroll. You go Camry, Prius. Oh, Jeep Wrangler. Oh,
I'm interested in that one, right?
Yes.
So, next up, like when the battery's dead, the vehicle's dead. I think that one's just, some people think that the Jeep 4xe is an EV, and it's not, right?
Right.
You can get in that Jeep 4xe and drive it the same way you would your standard JL and take a long road trip to Florida or whatever. And that's the beauty. To me, that's what pushed me over the edge. Is it's a Wrangler. I love the around town miles per gallon, but I can get in it, and I'm not looking for charging stations. In fact, charging publicly almost doesn't even make sense on this vehicle, in my personal opinion. When we'll talk about charging in that topic, but and then the other one, and you can chime in on this stuff, but they say the Jeep 4xe isn't a real Jeep, and Jeep says it themselves that it's a Jeep first and then a hybrid, and all of the ground clearances, everything that the trail rated, everything a normal JL can do, the 4xe can do, and probably do better because of the increased torque and power. I mean, it's the second most powerful Wrangler compared to just below a 392.
And if you do any off-roading, a lot of people, when it first came out, of course, you got like an extra 800 pounds in that thing. So it's a 5,000 pound Wrangler before you carry any gear. And a lot of people got this idea that the heavier the Jeep is, the worse off it is. Well, if you do any off-roading with anybody that's serious, you are on a trail with people who have 5,000 pound Jeeps, because some of these people carry gear. I mean, like
thousands of pounds worth of bumpers alone.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, they're carrying knuckles, they're carrying all this tools. And, I mean, I've gone a couple times with a friend of mine that has a 2-door, and there is zero room in the back of that Jeep. He has got that thing loaded, and he has said it's over 5,000 pounds by the time it hits the trail.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed, there are those times that added weight is advantageous. Now, there's probably times where it's a disadvantage too, but I have personally been on, like I went to Killbuck Jeep Jamboree, and the second day I got in line with another 4xe. We were the only 2 4xes in our group. And I was seeing that we were handling different parts differently than the regular Jeeps. And I don't know if it's the low center of gravity. I'm not smart enough to figure that all out. It's either the weight or the low center of gravity. And
to that point too, as a direct comparison, we went from an 18 JL to the 21 4xe, and on road, I would say that the 4xe handles nice, even better, just because of that extra weight too. So maybe before we move on to the next set of topics, maybe let's run through a quick couple of these questions over here. I'm kind of scrolling back. Hi guys, thanks for all the hellos. We got New York. The 4xe guy wants to know, Chris, where'd you get your shirt, your Jeep shirt? And that's not a Jeep shirt.
I'm such a loser. I come to a call like this and I don't even dress the part.
If you're talking to me, my wife and kids made this for me for Christmas. You're gonna have to hustle them down. As an owner of a 4xe, I'd like some assurance that this battery issue is going to be fixed if I'm ever going to be parking the garage again. Well, in my opinion, and Chris, you could chime in. I mean, 100%, right? Jeep, this is if it still is or not, this is the #1 selling plug-in hybrid. And, recalls, we're going to talk about recalls down in a minute here, but, Honda just got recalled 700,000 vehicles, and mind you, for a fire problem, and mind you, it's not even an EV. If we rewind a little bit, Chevrolet had an issue with the Bolt when it came out, and you couldn't park in parking garages. They were banned from public parking garages. And needless to say, that got fixed. So I would confidently say absolutely. I actually read an article today too, saying Stellantis just kind of turned over some opportunity with solid state batteries that they're going to put in their larger platforms. So I personally, battery technology is behind, not just in Stellantis and I mean, even in our cell phones. I mean, we're driving cars that are battery operated. Why do our cell phones need to be charged every 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yes, the 4xe is amazing. I would agree. Let's see here.
I think they engineered an amazing vehicle, and they have a parts supply issue.
Correct. Yeah.
That's my summation of that, and it will be made right. You
100%.
can think of. I was just thinking this as I was driving here. It's like I can't think of any other automotive fiasco other than maybe like the Pinto, and I'm sorry to draw that comparison, but other than like but other than like the Pinto, like I can't think of any other modern vehicle that has had issues on this magnitude that haven't eventually been made right. So,
sure. Right.
Yeah.
Here to say that went from a 2022 Durango with a V8. I was averaging 16 miles a gallon on a good day. She went to a 4xe. Best decision she ever made. $20 a day in gas, $20 a week. And I'll have you know, Ashley is one of the sales teams at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. She does an awesome job over there. She really knows the product. And I'm going to tell you what, a little plug for them too. We read all of these things about these dealers that don't have any clue about the repair, and we're going to talk about that. Ray does a nice job, and Ashley would be a great contact for you guys at that dealership. Never charge on road trips. There's no point. I agree. Unless you're going to literally stop somewhere and there happens to be a charger you're going to trip over, it just doesn't make sense.
And I've got a question. I don't know if I'm not seeing all the questions, but I'm seeing them on my channel. That somebody asked, why did they pick the 2.0 liter turbo 4-cylinder engine as the engine for the 4xe? And I think in my imagination, and I've actually run these questions past somebody that was part of that conversation when they were developing it. The priorities were it's a Jeep first, keep the cost down, and they were trying to get that 5,000-pound vehicle as efficient as possible. So the lightness of that engine and the space of that engine, if you popped a hood on a 4xe, there's not a lot of room for anything else in there. So
and that motor's got plenty of power. You know, I think for a while they were trying to put that motor out into the market, you know?
Yeah. So I'd say that efficiency was a big part of those developmental conversations of trying to get as efficient as a vehicle as they could. And because, you know, without the 4xe, the 392 can't exist, because people may not realize going back a few years, Jeep was paying millions in CAFE fines because of their fleet averages. So the 4xe, the 392 couldn't have come to market if it weren't for the 4xe to balance those.
100%.
Yeah. So
that's speaking of the 392, there's a comment, the weight difference is not that different from the 392. But the 4xe has a better weight distribution, and that's a very fair point. You know, and if you've driven both, which I have, you can really tell the difference on that, where that weight is up front versus in the middle. It does make a huge difference. But I will say, I do love that 392. That's incredible. That's a beast. So much fun.
And I actually got to see a video of somebody jumping their 4xe and comparing the landing to the 392. 392 nosedives, where the 4xe did it looked pretty good in the air.
Yeah. I think we misread the comment. The comment was, "Where is your Jeep shirt?"
Yes.
You got called out.
Yes, I stink.
So someone asked if we're still charging and does that hinder warranty. We're going to talk about that in a minute here. Someone said, yes, it's going to be made right. Lots of good comments about the off-road. Michelle says her first car was a Pinto. So there you go. So maybe it's your fault, right, Michelle? I think the 4xe had a good idea, more of a concept that needed a touch-up. I deal with F.O.R.M a lot. We could talk about F.O.R.M. I think the 4xe was not properly tested in cold weather and needed a little more love. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but should we talk about F.O.R.M? I feel like that's a big topic here. When that was not on the agenda.
Or do we schedule an entire call for that?
Maybe we do. You know, we'll
touch on it.
Let's touch on it. So I'm just going to give my feedback on F.O.R.M. So my wife is the driver of the 4xe. I am not on a daily. but she drives 60 miles a day. So she drives to work on electric and home on hybrid, whatever, and home on full fuel. Having said that, we have never been stuck in F.O.R.M, but I think it's because of the driving habit. And I also feel that, well, yes, there is some cold weather things. I think the bigger thing, and correct me if, and it's my opinion, is I think it's there's a misunderstanding of how the system works and the algorithm, and Jeep didn't do a great job explaining that. Even my 4B came with a 4xe addendum, which was 12 pages of kind of nothing, so it was a lot of learning on my own, and I know you were the same way for sure. But that's my experience. I've never been stuck in F.O.R.M, but I think it's because of the amount of miles we do in gas. We hit the temperatures, we hit all the check marks, so it doesn't happen for me. So everyone's going to have a different experience with F.O.R.M.
And I think one of the things I have, and there's few of us, like I can see Patrick's on here. Patrick and I are, and Shane Rose, he's been around a long time too. Some of us have talked about like trying to understand those algorithms and stuff. And I personally feel, and I think we're right on this, is you have to be very binary with your use. Like you were talking, you're either doing heavy electric use or when the engine runs, you make it run.
Yep.
And one thing that we found early on, like I was just having a lot of, this is during COVID, people were shut up. I was on social media a little bit more talking with people, and the questions, and I try to respond to messages on Facebook, and it's hard at times, but a lot of people that were asking about F.O.R.M, I would ask, what mode do you leave it in? What mode do you run in? And almost every time they would say hybrid mode. And I'd say, okay, watch those short engine runs, because I know with my personal drive to work, that engine could start and stop 10, 12 times if I'm a little heavy on the accelerator pedal. They call it a gas pedal. And, I could be, if I'm a little bit heavy and it starts and then it shuts off, and then it starts and it shuts off. And when you start a direct injection engine, you are introducing a lot of fuel in there that it then has to burn off in some way before it gets compressed into the oil. If you're starting that engine over and over and over again, especially
if it's cold.
Yeah, especially when it's cold, because the software dumps more fuel in to make sure you get a good solid start. And so that's why that issue is exacerbated in the winter, because one, you're introducing more fuel, you're not burning it off. And the last no charge park in the driveway recall we had, I did an experiment, and I was just driving it like normal, leaving it in hybrid, and I was just driving it like normal in the winter. And sure enough, I went into F.O.R.M, and I changed my driving habits. I went and did like a big 30-minute drive, changed my driving habits. I've only been in F.O.R.M, I think those 2 times the whole time I've had it, and it was just for very short periods. So has everything.
And the one thing that I'm seeing comments on here, I've got a 5-minute commute to work, I've got this, I think even worse than that is the person who has the 20-mile commute, and maybe the last 2 miles are electric or gas. That's the worst case scenario. You're almost better off not depleting the battery and splitting that up. If you only spend 2 miles a day in gas, you're for sure going to go to F.O.R.M. And yes, I see a comment, F.O.R.M happens more in the winter, is because of those temperatures and the engine's not reaching temperature. And I know a lot of people are frustrated. I think they needed just to do a better job of explaining it. I don't necessarily think the F.O.R.M is there to protect the engine. It's there to do the right job to protect the motor. And the other thing is, and when we'll talk about other things, but the worst thing you do is reset that oil life thing. I see some people saying, "Oh, just reset your oil life and you're out of F.O.R.M." I mean, please don't do that. That's taking the whole safety net out of the whole thing.
Yes.
And again, Chris, it's probably a great point. We probably could literally have a whole conversation.
Yeah, we won't get through this list if we spend too much time on F.O.R.M. But could we dispel one rumor though?
Yeah.
People say if you drive a lot of electric miles, you will get stuck in F.O.R.M. You won't get stuck in F.O.R.M. until you go and fill up with like 4 or 5 gallons of gas. If you've hit your 90-day timer on your gas tank or hit the timer on the engine spark plug thing, whatever, if you hit one of those timers, you run the engine for a little bit and you get out of it. And so there's different escape processes.
Kind of depends how you got there too, you know?
Yes. And I do know that the implementation team at Jeep wanted better indications on the dash.
Sure, that would make sense, yeah.
And that was a frustration that they had, is that they wanted better indications of why you were in form, and weren't able to get that accomplished.
It's kind of like choose your own adventure. It depends how you got here and how you want to get out.
Yes, yeah.
You know. There's a couple other forum questions here. Why is the ice motor so loud when it first starts? You know, I've got some thoughts on that. Let's chime in on that. I know there's a ton of questions. These are great. Worst case, we'll respond.
We didn't even need to do the list. Yeah.
You know, the one thing that ice tries to do, especially if it knows that it's coming, it tries to get it up to RPM. So you're not just going from electric. Imagine going down the highway at 60 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you're out of battery power, and you jam a cold motor on like that. That's obviously not good, you know. So there are processes with how the clutches engage and various things happen. So you're not just loading a cold motor from the start, right? Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, and there's
layman's terms, right?
There's people that think you have to warm up the engine if you're
smart enough
somewhere. And there's a what's called a K0 clutch between the engine and the drivetrain that opens during that timed cycle, and that's a timed start cycle. That and it is RPM high, and that's to get the catalytic converter cleared of any moisture and all that stuff. So, and that's what's called series mode, because you're charging off the front motor generator while you're propulsing. Is that a word? While you're getting propulsion from the P2 motor generator in the transmission, and that's a series hybrid at that point, because you're charging from one and running from the other. But that's the whole time cycle and by design.
So, okay, we probably I'm just going to answer a few of these questions. If you fill the tank more often, does that lessen the possibility of F.O.R.M? Yes, if you're only running if you're a heavy electric user, you know, if you're still doing those short trips in cold weather, that's not going to really change that. But if you're heavy electric, that kind of does help.
And there's one added issue with F.O.R.M. You know, when it gets around 5 degrees Fahrenheit, what is that Celsius? 15? I can't remember. Somebody help me convert to Canadian. But around 15 degrees or 5 degrees Fahrenheit, the Jeep is supposed to go into a electric mode lockout.
Yep.
And the display is supposed to read electric mode temporarily unavailable. And I
think that's an error.
Yeah, and that's actually correct at 5 degrees. And there's going to be variables. I think that's one of the issues, is there's a lot of variables in the elements in the vehicle as far as how it reads temperature and everything. But at that temperature, it's supposed to read electric mode temporarily unavailable. But for some reason,
4B guy says -15. That's probably your conversion.
-15 Celsius.
I think so.
Yeah, I think he's from Canada. Yeah, -15 C. So I think a lot of Jeeps, for some reason, and I can't get this part figured out, display F.O.R.M instead of the EMTU, electric mode temporarily unavailable message. Mine actually displays EMTU when it gets around that temperature.
Mine does too. And I don't know. I haven't had my 21 did that. My 24, I'm not sure. I guess I'll find out this winter. We never got cold enough this winter, but
if you go back in the history of my videos, I show how it's supposed to work.
Right.
I don't understand why some of them just display F.O.R.M. I don't get it.
To what you said, the messaging on the dash, I think, leaves a little bit to be desired, you know, and some things that aren't necessary. It would save you a trip to the dealer too, I think, if the messaging was better, you know.
Yes.
Why does a radiator need to be that loud? It's embarrassing at times when other cars are parked. You know, there are times it's loud. When that AC kicks in, it sounds like a 747's landing, you know. It's nature of the beast. Those clutches kicking in and the fans, and then you also have the fan for your battery, you know, temperature monitoring system and keeping it warm and cool depending on the temperatures. So
I would bet that the cooling system on the 4xe is capable of a lot more heat removal than a gas model because it's
100%.
doing both the gas
Doing
engine
the job
and
of both.
Yeah, so I think that's why. And we're hearing noises we normally get covered up by the sound of the gas engine.
That's what I always say too, that you normally don't hear these things.
Yes.
Let's have to do one more question. We're going to jump into the next topic. So the one says, can I re-gear my 22 Rubicon? I was told there was a software issue that prevented that. Is a re-gear needed for 37-inch tires? That's a loaded question. It depends what gears you have in there. 37-inch tires, I would personally want to re-gear. I think you're going to be running at wrong points of your your gear ratio. There are aftermarket ways to programming the gearing. There's things like the Taser, JB Scan, I think, does it. So just keep in mind there are aftermarket ways around that. But
and I wonder if 37s on a Sahara would work better than 37s on a Rubicon without gearing to get the shift points right.
You might.
I don't know that.
Depend on though that highway speed versus around town too.
Yeah, and a lot of people I've talked to say 37s are you can get away with 37s and not re-gear.
40s, no way. 40s,
30.
You're re-gearing. 37 probably depends on your commute, and it probably depends on your tolerance of,
right. Like, do you like to do 80 miles an hour, or are you okay doing 65, 66 when you're going to someplace?
Right. Those are questions you have to ask yourself. Yeah, because you're not going to do 80 without re-gearing.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into. We'll come back to some of these questions. Let's jump into the next topic we have, which is.
Did you talk about 4xe not being a real Jeep?
I did.
My response is Pshaw. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, so common problems that we're seeing dealers making. So we talked a little bit about this already, right? With the 49 miles per gallon E, we talked about obviously you don't buy from a Jeep dealership, they really don't necessarily understand the vehicle. But so some of the things, I have uneducated sales staff, and please, this is not a dig towards any specific dealer. It's just an overall thing.
Unfortunately, we see a lot of common things.
Right. And to me, the bigger conversation here, we kind of already talked about the selling side of it, like the understanding how the vehicle works. And here, let's give credit where credit's due. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram sales team have to know Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and all the submodels in between. And then even within there, all the features in between. These CDJR dealerships are loaded with knowledge. And I've always said this, we Jeep owners are freaks, right? We know probably more about the product than the dealership selling them. Now, I know that's a general statement. There's plenty of people who live and breathe Jeeps that are selling the product. But if you go to a Toyota dealership and you're buying a Camry, I guarantee you the guy buying the Camry doesn't know anything about the Camry like we know about the Wranglers when we go in.
Right.
I saw something the other day and it made me laugh, and it was one of these bikini colored Jeeps. It was on a Facebook page, and I brought my Jeep to the dealership, and for the color on the key tag, when they had it for service, they marked light blue. How dare them not know the color was bikini? For real? But that's the mentality us Jeep owners have, right? How do they not know it's bikini? This is the correct color, they have to learn so much. Now, I'll also give them credit. I don't think they were given the tools and the proper training from Jeep, in my opinion. I get it, COVID, everything that happened, but there was a lack of knowledge when these were launched, period. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say from the sales standpoint.
Yes.
From a service standpoint, this is where I think we've really seen some issues. With the latest recall, you see now Jeep put out a announcement or a bulletin to the dealerships on how to handle the recall and common questions. And I personally think that's a direct relationship from the ZB7 and the B9A, because a lot of dealerships they completely botched all of those recalls. And I think Jeep is paying attention to that. So, you know, as an owner, you got to understand, and we shouldn't have to understand all the ins and outs of the recall. We should be able to take it to the dealership and pick it up fixed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we saw it with the B9A. You know, it was supposed to take minimum of 8 hours. People are coming in and out with 2 hours, right?
Yes.
I think, and Chris, I know you'll agree with me. I really think that 04B defrost recall was almost a CYA from Jeep to get the people back in without tagging on the word battery.
And it was a way to get that same update that was needed
That's what
by
I'm saying.
B9A.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was buried in there.
Yes.
Correct.
And I'm a little bit miffed. I got my snit in the snoot that they called that a defrost recall.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of people just went, I can wait on that. And
Correct.
not realizing how important that 04B. I mean, we're still, I just saw a post today where somebody was like, I'm getting my B9A today, and I'm pulling my hair out. Like, I'm not saying it, but I'm pulling my hair out like, and this comes from a place of concern. I'm concerned for them in their Jeep experience and their safety for their property and everything. Why haven't you got that thing done already? You know.
And so to that point, you know, you made a post the other day, and I liked it, and it was, you know, this is gonna sound like we're Jeep owners. You know, you remember that there was that viral thing. Hey, we're Jeep owners. We like this. We do. You know, we're Jeep owners. We're used to check engine lights. You know,
this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. You know,
right? But
yeah,
but it's different now, right? If you have that check engine light on, I get it. It could be for a loose gas cap, but in this situation, if you have a check engine on your 4xe, you need to get it checked out because you don't know if it's for the loose gas cap or if it's a battery issue. And now you've got a real problem on your hands.
And it's not a check engine light anymore.
Right.
What's it called?
Or
malfunction indicator lamp.
Yeah.
But it's in the shape of an engine. Okay.
But so, and again, I don't blame the dealers on this, really. I mean, some of them, I guess. You know, I read that
I think it's training.
And what's that?
I think it's every bit training.
Yeah.
And I've worked for big companies and small companies, and I can honestly see how this side of the company doesn't know completely what this side of the company is doing, and how there's disconnects there. And there were so many dealerships, like going back to the MPGE thing, so many dealerships in the beginning posting, it gets 49 miles to the gallon. And I mean, there was a major auto publication that published that information, and I wrote the author, and I'm like, you can't put this out there, you know, you've got to fix this. And so that information, I think, comes from training, and I think it goes back to why we're seeing issues with the training and you know, inconsistency and recall. There's got to be a disconnect there. So,
I agree, and again, shameless plug for the dealer that supports my group, but I will say they have a tech there. He might even be on here. Colin is his name. You know, he's been a Chrysler tech for over 30 years, Viper certified, SRT certified, you know, hybrid certified with the Pacifica and 4xe. And I guess, you know, what I'm trying to say is not all dealerships don't have are this way. You know, Ray Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, and Fox Lake, they do a really nice job, and they follow those recalls. They were doing the B9A recall properly. They were one of the few that, you know, you would drop your Jeep off and customers like, man, it took 2 days. I'm like, that's a good thing. You know, people are getting upset. I mean, you don't want it back in 2 hours, you know, so not all dealerships were that way, but there's certainly a disconnect between you know, OEM and the dealerships. There's no question about it. And I think in this latest current recall, I think we're seeing that change because they're putting better communication between Jeep and the dealerships. It's obvious, you know. So those were a couple of things we talked about. A lot of them already. All right. So the next, go ahead.
So like the used dealers selling the thing in conjunction with the MPGE issue, there's a lot of them that are saying they will use the term combined, not understanding what the combined means. they will say it gets 45 miles to the gallon electric combined. And what they think is the combined portion is gas and electric. But what is combined is city highway. And when they see that combined word in a plug-in hybrid, they're thinking combination of two power sources. They don't realize that the EPA test cycle is now a combined test cycle where they do high speeds and low speeds, and they give you one number instead of like years ago where we used to get city highway on the Monroney sticker. So that's if you see that combined, it's not gas electric, it's highway city.
All right, let's go through a few questions here.
Yep.
My daughter has a 24 4xE. When it's charging on our level 2 charger, about halfway through the charge, there's a very high fan noise coming from the engine compartment. Totally normal. That is the battery system doing what it's supposed to do, and it's cooling the battery, conditioning the battery. So sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on various internal and external conditions. So
and what the geniuses that invent this technology figured out not too many years ago, relatively speaking, is that if you keep the battery cool while it's charging, that extends battery life. And if you'll notice, like Cobalt tools, like I have the 80-volt string trimmer, it has a fan built into the battery charger, and it's got holes in the battery case. You see all sorts of different examples of manufacturers with lithium-ion batteries cooling them in some way, shape, or form while they're charging, and that's gonna, if you bought a like a Black & Decker electric tool years ago, that battery, you might got 2 years out of it. Now I've got like 4 years on some of my Cobalt tools. So cooling that battery during charging is really important. And I have a feeling some of these software updates, I don't know which ones, have added or lowered that threshold. I don't know how you want to say that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So, and someone else made the comment here. They must have made a change, the thermal management on 24 to cool better. I will say my 24 does activate that fan a lot more than my 21 did. Now, if the 21 got updates, maybe that'll change. But I would agree. I think that there were some changes there, 100%. I don't know for a fact, I guess, but
I have a personal theory. I haven't officially tested this all the way through. I've got a level 1 and a level 2 installed in my garage. I bought an extra Jeep charger so I can have one in the Jeep, and I have one mounted in my garage. I have a feeling that during the summer when it's warm, it might actually be more energy efficient to charge with the level 1 because it doesn't trigger all that cooling.
Yeah.
You don't have all that extra cooling going on. I have nothing to back that. I have no data to back that up yet.
Come on, Chris, you're the man of data.
I know. Well, I tried to build my model this summer, and I wasn't getting the time to do it, but I really, it's a running theory I have, and that's why I have both installed in my garage, because I was sitting out there in the garage one day, and if you feel the heat, if your garage is closed, if your garage is that warm, think how much energy that is. That's energy. Right. And so I started plugging in with the level 1. Garage doesn't get as hot. I'm thinking, level 2 in the past, the theory was it's 15% more efficient. So I don't know if that 15% offset happens with the level 1. I don't know.
Does this work? Oh, this is kind of cool. I didn't do this. Look at this.
Yeah.
I learned something new. I daily drive my off-road Rubicon 4xE. No need to re-gear. 80s, no problem. More Rubicon. So that answers that. If you're interested,
is it tacking at like 3,500 at 80? I mean, what's it?
Yeah, I'm curious, Chris. What's your tack read at that speed?
Yeah.
We're just gonna go through a couple of these. This was kind of about the dealer stuff, turnover rates with salesmen, employers taking it. Anyone can breathe. That's certainly true. I will say another kudos to Ashley at Ray CDJR. She's been there a number of years. So she's a lifer there for sure. So, but it's a valid point, unfortunately.
It is.
This goes to kind of show you, I mean, it speaks for itself, right? Training, how to stay, right? I mean, say no more, right? I don't know.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing Detmar's name. I think it's Detmar. You talk about a guy that is a data hound. I'm convinced he has a server in his basement with every ounce of 4xe data you could get your hands on. So he's like one to you gotta get in with him.
Try to go to the dealership that got your business. Let's see what this one says. If you don't purchase there, they aren't going to give you the attention you expect. Also, much yes and no. I mean, you got to remember too, the service departments at dealerships are a great way of earning business, right? That the service department talks to more people on a daily basis than any other department in a dealership. So if you go to a dealership, even if you didn't buy there, they're going to want to earn your business. They just are. And I agree that this is generally the mindset.
I've seen people talk about that.
You know,
I haven't had that experience.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, every dealership's a little different. I know for a fact, Ray, they don't treat anyone differently. They don't give a loaner car out if you bought there versus you didn't buy there. But to be fair, that's probably true at some dealers. How's that? You know, but any smart dealerships can understand that the service department is a profit center, and they talk to more people on a daily basis than any other department does. This is something kind of random, and I know this is new. Some people haven't seen it. With some of the updates, you know, you get those alerts on your Uconnect screen. That's kind of cool. Tow trucks or ambulances coming. You can turn that feature on and off if it's something you want to change. Should I be concerned? My defrost recall took about 4 hours because they said it went quick. I don't think necessarily I'd be concerned about that one.
I think that one's timed at like 2 hours.
Yeah, and that one, they didn't have the verbiage in there to do all of these the battery tests on it, the 8-hour test. Yeah. So I think 4 hours, I would not be concerned.
And in that, you know, some people, I don't know, we're going to talk about this later. Some people think that some people have gone and gotten the 04B and gotten a check engine light on the way home.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Yep. We'll get that in a second. So then this, depending on what updates you had already on your Jeep, there were lots of updates to that max regen. They made it less abrupt. So my guess is you hadn't had many updates previous to this, and this just incorporated your updates because that was an update.
Or they did the updates and they didn't take, which
that
was
could happen
part
too.
of B9 and 04B. Yeah, but there's a ramp rate change and a gear selection change programmed in with one of those updates that made it less herky-jerky.
Here's a good one. Is there somewhere we can see recalls have been issued and fixed? I have the defrost as they're saying it was done before I bought it. The app tells me, but I don't trust it. I mean, that is all recorded under your VIN number. So you can take your VIN number to any dealership, and they're going to tell you what open recalls it had and were done. You can also check your open recalls on the NTHSB website, but that's not going to. I don't think that's going to tell you what ones have been completed.
Does the Mopar one tell you what ones have?
I don't know.
I know
here, you can call Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram and talk to the service department. I know they'll help you. 847-356. 847-587 3800.
And I know that's on the the last time I had mine in, or 2 times ago when I had it in, they handed me a printout that was like the history of the vehicle.
Sure. Yeah, if you ask for history, they'll give it to you.
So it's in there.
Yeah, it follows your Jeep, even if you bought it used. I don't have my window sticker with me, but the 49 mile per gallon was mentioned on the window sticker. We all know it was, it 100%, and it was big and bold, so it was very, very confusing, no question. But it was,
and at
this point, it was E though.
It was E, and if you look real close at there's a formula next to that 49. The 49 is this big. The formula is this big, and you got to get your readers on and do that. But down
reading it through the tinted window and
and there is a formula in there, and it says 0.0 gallons of gas used or something to that effect. I can't remember how it says it, but it says 0.0 gallons of gas, which is telling you it's only electric that we're measuring in that formula.
Here's the follow up. Dietmar, level 1. There you go. I would agree with that.
We need to do that experiment next summer.
Yes,
I messed up this year.
And here, this confirms what I was saying too. My 24 definitely runs more than my 21. My 21 only ran if it was a 100-degree day. Now it could be a cool day and it still runs. This one we're not going to go into a lot of depth on. This is another.
It makes you wonder about the duty cycle of the coolant pumps. If those coolant pumps have been improved and they can run more.
I wonder if they're different part numbers. Be curious to see.
I don't know. I just asked that out loud in my head.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is another one that could probably have its own topic, and this is not 4xe related. And this is the other thing, guys. This isn't Jeep related either. This is anything with a solid front axle. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: most people are going to tell you, throw on a new steering stabilizer, and it's going to fix your problem. Generally speaking, a new steering stabilizer is a band-aid for an issue that's already existing that's causing death wobble. Same with, I guess out of balance tires can technically trigger death wobble, but it's generally not a cause of death wobble. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do is you really need to have someone under there looking at all the bushings, all the suspension parts, anything that's a movable part under there. I will say, if even Jeep's fix to one that's under warranty is to throw a new steering stabilizer on it. And I've had it on a brand new vehicle. If you're going to put a steering stabilizer on it and you're out of warranty, I have no connection to or whatever, but the Falcon steering stabilizer for a couple $100 is game changing. Mm-hmm. But again, keep in mind, you got to make sure that there's no worn components, because a new steering stabilizer is really just a band-aid for an issue that's under there. But this is not specific to Jeep, guys.
And speaking of our friend Dietmar, you got to tell me how I pronounce it. I am so sorry, but he has this list that he will post often, and I always go back. I always go back and find his post. It says, check track bar bolts, check drag link-ins, check tie rods, check ball joints, check steering box, check unit bearing, check tire weight balances. Steering stabilizers do not fix death wobble. And so. That's
a band-aid. It'll cover it.
It's a band-aid.
It'll fix it,
yeah.
But you've cauterized the wound, right?
And after I put my lift on, which I've only got a 2-inch Mopar lift, and after I got a little bit of death wobble one day, I said, you know what? I'm going to have to deal with that. I took it to an off-road shop for something else. What did I take it to them for? I don't remember now. And she told me, she said, hey, they have a spot where they go test Jeeps before they work on them, that this spot in the road is bad enough that it triggers death wobble every time. And
it's usually like an expansion joint that'll just send it out,
And this off-road shop knows where to go, and they test every Jeep. And she called me. She said, hey, you got a little death wobble. I have read enough in off-road in Jeep groups. I was just like, you know what? Let's just Terraflex that. I'm not messing with the stock front end anymore. And nope. And everybody you talk to, Metal Cloak or Terraflex, in fact, mine's a combination. Mine's a hybrid. I have a hybrid front end because I have the shock, what do you call that thing? The stabilizer is a Metal Cloak stabilizer, but the rest is all Terraflex hardware.
Yeah. And honestly, and this isn't a dig against Jeep at all, but if you take one of those OEM stabilizers in your hand compared to pick any other brand, yes. It's like a pencil compared to just it's anemic, and I can't believe they really haven't done anything with that one. Yeah, but it is what it is.
It's money well spent to take it to an off-road shop, I think.
All right, move forward here real quick, and then we'll get into. We just did that one. I have problems getting the engine up to F.O.R.M clearing temperatures in the winter. Drive it more. I don't know that there were any updates for that. I saw people last year even putting like 3D printed, covers over the grill to try and maintain engine temperatures. If you shift it to manual mode, it'll keep it in. It'll keep the gas engine running.
Go down one gear,
or go down one gear. You'll increase RPMs. Yeah. So, drive it more, drive it harder. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Chris, back to your question. At 80 miles an hour, he's at a 25. That's respectable. I would say run it. That's not bad at all.
Is that a true 37, or is that like a 36 that they call a 37?
A metric 37?
I don't know if that inch would make a difference, but that's good to know. That's in Rubicon especially.
This is one I have not heard of, and that would scare me actually, because when you unplug that charger, as soon as you click the button to release it, you'll hear a micro switch in there. And that little micro switch is actually telling the Jeep and the charger, hey, we're done, you know? And so there should be literally no power. So I don't know if that's
I'd have a question about what charger they're using.
Yeah, so yeah, is it a charger issue? I'm curious what charger you're using. Faulty charger.
I hate to throw out a name, but just heard a lot of issues with must start. I know they're affordable, but
and there was one that didn't one of these just got recalled too. I don't want to throw out a name because I'll have to look it up. Some of them just got recalled, but they were was for a fire issue. But excuse me.
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of that. I'd be curious what charger you have.
Yes. Juice box. Oh, that is surprising.
What's that?
He said juice box.
That's surprising.
Isn't that the one that got
a Mopar branded one for a while?
Isn't that the one that got recalled though?
Was it juice box or wall box? I get the two confused.
Wall box.
I think it was wall box.
That's interesting.
100% Falcon for steering stabilizer, metal cloak all the way, right? Like you can't go wrong either way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's an interesting one. One way to understand mile per gallon E, 1 gallon of gas is equal to either 32 kilowatt, 36, 40. Yeah, this is,
yes.
That's a very good equation.
If you Wikipedia MPGE, there's a lot more formulas than the electric formula, but because MPGE applies to all sorts of alternative fuel vehicles. But there's a great formula that uses that 37 kilowatt hour or something. And it depends on the octane of gas too, as to how much electrical energy it has.
So, Frank, my understanding, correct. It's not a parts availability issue at this point. There is not engineering has not come up with a fix yet. So that is that.
And is that his real picture? Did he really serve on the Enterprise? I mean, I would, if I was in the Navy, I would want to serve on the Enterprise because I'm a Star Trek geek. But anyway.
Short drive, so I manual shift, does not shut off, and I get up to temp. Yep. To answer your question, he's got the juice box. Here's the question on tires. Mickey Thompson's. Those are Mickey Thompson's. Those are true 37s. I'm close enough, right?
That's good to hear because I've seriously considered going 37 when it's time. I'm on 33s right now, so.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is where we understand where when your vehicle spends more time in the shop, it definitely takes the wind out of the sail. All I could say is, I'm on my second one. I love it. Hang in there. Sorry, you're in this predicament.
And it seems like that 12 volt. Like I just had mine in the shop for 3 weeks, getting doors, hood, and tailgate replaced because of the corrosion issue.
Yep.
And I knew I was on borrowed time. I was seeing how far my 21 12-volt battery would go because my 12-volt actually outlasted my hybrid battery, funny enough. But I was seeing how far it would go. But while it was in the shop, it crapped out and they couldn't get it going. And we have learned how valuable that 12-volt battery is to the entire system. You think the hybrid battery is important, but that 12-volt battery, being a good quality 12-volt battery, is important. So I went Yellow Top Optima and took it over to them and gave it to them, and they put it in. So
yeah, it's funny. So I dragged my 4xe behind our diesel RV, and first time I got to a campsite, it was dead. No, windshield wipers are going. It's funny how much stuff really acts up. You really think there's a major problem.
Yes.
What a dead 12-volt battery can do.
Yeah.
I only get 27 miles on electric. That's it. That's what you're supposed to get.
Grand Cherokee or Wrangler?
What's that?
Grand Cherokee or Wrangler? I wonder.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Well, Trailhawk, I would say probably Grand Cherokee, right?
Right. That's
actually good.
Yeah.
That's actually good. It's all about the big picture and recharging. This one concerns me. They told me I'm gonna call my dealer, which that's what they're gonna tell you to do. They want the dealership to be the front line on that stuff. I personally, for a dealership to say that, I think that's bold. If your vehicle is under warranty, I wouldn't charge it, or under recall rather, I wouldn't charge it. But let's see here. Just want to thank you guys for everything you do. Send Chris in his message today with CEL throwing a code. Questions, thank you for quick answers. Couldn't get from the dealership. That
was ECH.
we've both been living this for a while for sure. So
Yep.
no, it's.
And something that people don't realize, the search function, if you're in a Facebook group, whatever Facebook group it is.
And you and I are both having the same problems right now.
Oh, you're having an ECH?
No, I mean with the Facebook group searching and all these.
Oh, yeah. So
sorry.
it's such an incredible repository of data. There's a Facebook group search function. Sometimes I forget what some of these codes mean. I mean, this processor doesn't run as well as it used to. And sometimes I'll see somebody post a code and I'm like, oh, I can go look that up in the group and find 1,400 posts about it. But yeah, that's that PO 115 or PO whatever that was. That's a electric coolant heater. That's dead.
This one's a great follow-up question. Where was the shock from? Be curious to see on that.
Yeah. That's a good question.
This one, yeah, just because you had your battery replaced does not mean you're immune from that recall. So
right.
I would definitely make sure you're following up just as everyone else is.
Yes.
Frank?
I just got my battery replaced and I'm on the recall.
There's your answer, Chris. Thank you, Frank. That's awesome.
Nice.
I'm just going to skip through a couple of these. I'm very lucky to get 21 miles of all electric. Everyone's a little different in how they run.
Does he have a 21? I'm trying to
remember. A little low.
G. Shane Rose has been around a long time, and I'm thinking he's got a 21. If you're seeing that go down compared to what it used to be, you might have a degradation issue going on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you're not seeing 21 miles and you used to, and I mean what you're achieving, not what the gasometer says on the dash.
Correct. Yeah, because that fluctuates. Yeah. That's just like your estimated.
Yeah.
So here's the shock is from the 1772 connector. That's interesting. I have not heard of that, and I would be.
They're double insulated and everything. I mean,
yeah,
and
I'd be curious to try a different known working charger. I guess cautiously. I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one. I get 18 miles.
I'd be curious.
Charge, I bet the rear gets me a couple back for sure. 18 miles on a full charge with 37s and a 3.5-inch lift. That's actually probably respectable.
Mm-hmm. But if it starts dropping, pay attention to that.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to charging. That's our next.
And you probably wouldn't get. He's saying probably get a couple miles back with a regear. I don't think that would be true because the only reason for the transmission. Yeah, and the only reason for the transmission on the 4xe is the gas engine. The electric motor doesn't care, and you're not going to.
Yeah, but you're regearing the axle, so it's still going to be the final drive number.
Yeah, I don't know if you would notice getting a lot of electric range back by regearing. That'd be an interesting.
I'd be curious, actually.
Yeah.
Man, we are an hour into this, and there's still quite a bit. I guess it's up to you guys what we want to do, but maybe we'll skip this one. I had the 4xe, the right vehicle for you. I think we can talk about this really briefly. I think that, if you do a lot of long trips, I don't think a 4xe is for you. If you are on the highway all the time and you're doing a lot of long trips, the 4xe is probably not the vehicle. Now, having said that, there's a lot of incentives on the 4xe. I know people have bought 4xes just because of the price point and the incentives and the tax credits, or they lease well. So maybe from that standpoint, it's the right vehicle. But from a functionality point of a 4xe, if you do hundreds of miles a day and you can't charge in the process of that day, that 20-some mile range on electric isn't going to benefit you much. Now, maybe you can make up for it on weekends or whatever. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. If your daily commute, I think I did a couple experiments trying to figure out where that benefit tapers off. And it seemed like right around 50, 60 miles is the max of where the benefit of charging plus going a distance, if you were driving, say, 60 miles a day. That's
interesting because that's what my wife drives.
Yeah.
And I see the benefit there. It works for us. You
can probably still average 30 miles a gallon on
even a little more. Yeah.
35. Yeah.
The other thing to say is if you're into it for the extra power and that's a thing, then maybe it's the right vehicle for you. But from a efficiency standpoint, it's not going to be worse than a standard JL, in my opinion. Some people might argue that, but it's going to be right there. So that's
you could get off on a whole tangent on carbon emissions too. I mean, you could you could go down that rabbit hole. So
yeah. So I think we put that one to bed. I think the next one, and this kind of might tie in together a little bit with it, but how charging, right? So explain the advantages of level 2 charging. Charging etiquette is another one if you charge in public. I think it's something to talk about briefly, and how to get the most out of the 4xe platform. So it's really simple, right? Charge. That's the way you're going to get the most out of your platform. Is if your Jeep is sitting idle and it can be plugged in, you're going to be the winner. Mm-hmm. I always tell this story, but so my wife's a teacher, so in the summers she's off and runs the kids to A, B, and C, comes back. She might do 3 or 4 10, 15-mile trips throughout the day, but with a level 2 charger, every time she leaves the house, she's fully charged. So we'll see, again, on the Dreamo meter, if you want, 50-some miles per gallon. Again, we've already talked about that, but, we'll see that on the screen because we can continue to charge. Now, if you didn't have level 2 and you were only level 1, as soon as you take that first trip and you deplete the battery, you're 14 hours later before you can use it again. So those of you who don't have level 2 at home and have the schedule to charge more than every 14 hours, you are definitely missing out. If you have the level 2 charger, you will exponentially save money at the pump. There's just no two ways about it. So I don't know if you want to add to that, but level 1 versus level 2. Now, if you're the type of person that you drive to work and you come home and you don't leave the house again until next morning, the level 1 is probably just fine for you, right? I mean, you don't need a level 2.
A lot of people can by doing the math, a lot of people can get away with the level 1.
But if you ever leave the house and your battery is dead and it was home for more than 2 hours, you need a level 2 charger.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. And that's why I have both installed in my garage. I pick which one I want to use.
And I've got to your point, a portable one. Like again, we drag our Jeep behind our RVs. When we go to a campsite, we'll plug into the 50 amp breaker at a campsite, and it's like getting free gas.
Yeah.
So that's probably level 1 versus level 2. I mean, I'm sure there's more to that topic, but I think that kind of answers that question.
And level 2 is supposed to be, like we were talking about earlier, level 2 is supposed to be anywhere from 5 to 15% more efficient. But I have that big question mark about the cooling in the summer, if that would offset that efficiency. So,
well, and I always wonder too, is it my son's into RC cars and planes and that kind of stuff, right? The slower you charge the battery, the longer they seem. Is there anything to that? I don't know. And then the other question I had when I first bought it was, I'm only at 50%. Do I need to drain it down full before I recharge it? And the reality is that you're going to cycle this battery so many times that it's not even a concern. I mean, if I drive it down the driveway, I'll come back and plug it back in,
Yeah. And a lot of people carry ideas over from EVs, like charging to 80%, because that 80 to 100 is so inefficient and takes so much longer. So a lot of people try to carry that EV methodology over to a plug-in hybrid, different battery, different idea, different setup. And some people get into that like discharging thing. That comes from like old battery technology methodology too. So we compound a lot of stuff in that.
And the other thing too, our 100% is different than an EV, right? There's reserve that we don't touch. The other comment I've read is, well, when the battery goes dead, my Jeep is slower. Well, it's not. You always have the same amount of torque and same amount of horsepower when your battery goes dead or not. It's just the way the system works, and there's a reserve
unless they're having some battery issues.
Well, when functioning properly. How's that?
When functioning normally, yeah.
When functioning normally, yes.
100% on our gauge is like 97% actual state of charge. I think something like that. And like less than 1% is like anywhere from 15 to 17% actual state of charge, because we only use 17.3 kilowatt hour of a 17.5 kilowatt hour battery. So they've left that 0.2 kilowatt hour, or how do you want to say that, 200 kilowatt hour, or 200 watt hour, whatever that is. I can't metric. Whatever that 0.2 kilowatt hour, they leave that as a space in there, so we never charged 100%.
Yep. All right, let's do a couple more questions before we jump on to the next topic. What if your long trips are at Moab? Well, you might want the extra torque. 2021, 4B, 3 years in November. This is the best Wrangler I've owned, and show guys, not sure. Oh, great show, guys. Thanks. Yeah, and you know, we've had so many Wranglers, and between my wife and I, and my wife being the daily driver, we would agree that 4BE has been our absolute favorite Wrangler. Someone says the extra power is what makes it worth it to me. We talked about that. Here's a suspicion on the electric shock. The connector is that the defect is most likely not from the Jeep, but possibly a switch on the charger cable. So that's what I was kind of mentioning. Well, how I would test that is before you even pull it out, when you click that switch to disengage the charger and you hear that micro switch turn off, or you hear that micro switch click, see if the charger stops charging. The charger should stop charging as soon as you push that button. If it doesn't, you've got a defective switch. I'm actually surprised it would charge with the switch being defective, though. I think there'd be a fail safe in there, but
sail face.
Yeah. So I would try that.
Yeah.
Put 55 gallons of gas in it, not counting the full tank from the dealership. When 4 kicks in, I added 5 gallons. I mean, 23 months and to do 55 gallons. I burn that in my truck in a week, and it's I joke that my wife balances my fuel economy.
And that's the kind of form that is caused by time, not oil dilution.
Correct.
And that's
where
the good form. That's the good form. That's not the one you get stuck in.
Mine was always around 20 miles from the beginning. A lot of people are getting more than mine. I think the battery was weak from the beginning.
That was my comment too.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. Let's see. I get depressed when a vehicle kicks into ice. Sounds like a children's toy. We talked about this sound earlier.
Sounds like
most of the time I don't see a big change. I agree. I mean, my electric bill, it's kind of funny. We had a hot tub and we got rid of our hot tub about the same time we bought the 4xe. And I think my hot tub actually used more power than I charged my 4xe.
Yeah.
So I would say $25, $30 a month is what my change is. That kind of makes sense. You know, you're jamming all that power in there right fast.
I've read some articles that say anything 32 amps and under shouldn't really cause a lot of degradation. That's one of those things that the
accelerate is a wide term, though. Maybe
right. But like he's got some good data on degradation, and what I really love to do at some point is compare, say, 10 Jeeps that have only been charged level 1 to 10 Jeeps that have been charged level 2. If all 10 of those Jeeps, we could get them to survive having a battery long enough to do it.
Come on, be positive.
Yes.
This is a tough one. I have a level 1. I can only charge it at my work since I live in an apartment. It's funny. On my YouTube channel, I did a video about living with an EV for a couple of days, and for me, 4xe was a vehicle that bridged even thinking about owning an EV, and I'm not even quite there yet personally. But the one, I have a rebuttal but just about everything. Battery warranty, all these things. The one rebuttal that I truly don't have is living in an apartment that you don't have access to a charger. That is one major hurdle with where electric is going. So I get that. That's a tough one to try and.
And if you read articles, like I kind of nerd out on like electrification adoption and that kind of stuff. I mean, that is just a huge issue
Yep.
across the country. Not just the United States, Canada too. It's an issue in Europe too. And that's there are different views on like how they adapt to that. And like in some cities and some states, they're passing like electrical code that if you build an apartment complex, you have to have so many, at least 120-volt outlets that people can at least charge a level 1 and 2. But how do you talk an apartment complex into installing stuff like that?
That's a tough one for sure.
It's huge.
Let's see. Mine was so loud, scared people standing next to the vehicle. Yep. That's normal. I didn't mention I spent $500 on the level 2, another $500 on the wire to go from my electric bike to the charger. Unfortunately, the box location of the charger is the opposite of the house. Yeah, I mean the install. Really. Fortunately, I did my own install, but the biggest fluctuation in price is how far you got to run the wire. There's no question about it. The wire is expensive.
Yep. Labor's expensive.
Yeah. My first time with a 23 check engine light illuminated. The mechanic couldn't find anything wrong. Shut the engine off. It was only off running for 5 minutes on the beach. There's a CEL light that came up. It's got to have some stored codes. So there's got to be something in there to point them the right direction. Sounds like you need a new mechanic in the nicest way possible, because there should be at least a stored message.
And, I have never been a person to have an OBD reader before owning this vehicle. And so many people talked about it. I don't know. I don't know that I would own it without a JScan at this point.
So no codes came up.
Yeah, no codes came up. See, I went off-roading earlier this year. We went down this little trail. I hit a puddle. Check engine light comes on, or malfunction indicator lamp, whatever, comes up. And I was able to go in there and see that it was the coolant pump A. It was cool enough outside, and I know the other coolant pumps in there working. So I knew it wasn't that big of an issue, and I wasn't running it that hard. But if you have a code come up, you have no idea. Is it a coolant pump, electric coolant heater? Is it a battery issue? Throwing a code,
Yep. So, and these scanners now, they're so cheap. I mean, long ago they were hundreds of dollars. Now you get them on Amazon. They Bluetooth to your phone. I mean, it's crazy.
And JScan is built for the 4xE. I mean, they've got 4xE specific stuff in there.
So it's one of the few.
It just won't give you a code. It'll say this is what's going on. So you don't even have to know what the code means. You don't have to translate it anywhere.
So we kind of been talking about this. We'll jump into this real quick. This is one of the last few topics here, but recall discussion. We've talked about a lot of this, and this is where Chris, I think we'll have the conversation about. I got my recall done, and I went home and got a check engine light, and this is where I think the whole thing started to go sideways.
Yes.
And that was so we had the ZB7 recall, and that's where they would lose loss of motive power.
Which is still under investigation by the NHTSA right now.
And so what would happen is he had this recall, similar timing. It was like same time the year came out, and the recall came out in December. I want to say it was about 21, 22, whatever it was.
Yeah. It was early on.
Software fix, pick up your Jeep just to get a couple miles down the road, and the check engine light comes on. So what's happening here is that these recalls are your vehicle has parts that aren't working, but it doesn't know how to tell you they're not working.
Yes.
So those recalls are reloading this software into the Jeep. So now it's basically its own diagnostic tool. And if all these criteria aren't met, then it sends the check engine light. And this was actually a big help with the heater modules that were going bad as well.
Like I had one of the first ones go bad, the electric coolant heater.
Yep.
Jeep Garage didn't know what to do. They knew it wasn't right, but the engine was just running, and I got that electric mode, unavailable, cabin cooling and heating message, but no check engine light. And they knew it wasn't right, but they didn't know what was wrong. You know what I mean? And so they would call Jeep, they would open up a case, and unfortunately training wasn't always the greatest with the Jeep Wave or Jeep Cares people or whatever they're called.
They've gotten better, but yes.
They've gotten better. But back then, I mean, I was actually on the phone with the lady at one point trying to explain this issue. I said, when I start the vehicle, the engine runs. And she said, well, it's supposed to. I said, ma'am, it has a 21-mile stated electric range.
Right.
She said, but the engine will always start in a hybrid. so I realized at that point, I thought we were having a conversation where we were like this, and I found out we were like this. And so that issue back then didn't throw a check engine light. They actually used the data, the Jeep engineering team used the data off of my Jeep to help create the fix that ended up going in and now throws a check engine light if you lose the electric coolant heater, because it corrected a communications issue between whatever module that ECH was. It was like the ECH was connected to a daughter module that was connected to a mother module, and there was a communications issue in there.
But the problem there was, in my opinion, right? You had this vehicle, had a recall, you're scared to drive it, loss of motor power, you bring it in,
Right.
you get it fixed, then you leave,
Yes.
and now all of a sudden a flood of check engine lights. So from a consumer standpoint, they're like, pulling out the little hair I have left, right? It's just, what are we doing, And I don't think there was even an understanding as to what this update really was,
Right.
And then,
Which
fast forward to what's that?
Which goes back to transparency. It'd be nice if we were a little more transparent with what all these updates are.
This is what's going to happen, right? You may get a check engine light, okay, I knew it was coming,
Yeah.
And honestly, like, it got to the point where, like, I know you and I were both telling our Facebook groups, like, listen, if you got a check engine light after your update, it's probably a good thing because now you know what's wrong with your Jeep. You didn't know what was wrong with it before. Now they can figure it out. Now they can fix it, but people don't think that way, and rightfully so, right? I took it in, it got fixed. Now I have a check engine light. How is that a good thing? Well,
right.
Now we know what's wrong
with 04B, and unfortunately, people are coming back into the forums, coming back to the groups saying, "I had 04B done, and it threw a check engine light." It's like, no, that issue was already there.
Correct.
04B made the communications happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing with these recalls that I think wasn't, to your point, wasn't transparent with, So then the B9A, right? Right, 04B, 95B. I mean, so we're to the point, and again, I feel like the poor Jeep is under the microscope with it. Keep in mind, it's still the number one plug-in hybrid selling vehicle.
Most Jeeps don't have these issues. I mean, it's like the predominant number of Jeeps don't have the issues. It's the small number that do. And this comes from a guy I've had a lot of issues. I mean, it's been in the shop a lot, but right. I can separate my dogma from my data, if you will. The data points to, we just haven't had a lot of, it's not like all 4xEs have these issues. So,
right. And the problem is, and I know your page as well as mine, people are tired of reading the negative. They're tired of seeing another post. You've got 25,000 members. I've got close to 20. Between the two of us, I know there's a ton of overlap, but let's call it, 40 some thousand people. The problem is you get 500 of the 40,000 come on and say, I've got a problem, right? How about the other, 35,000 people don't come on and say, I love my Jeep, right? If you go to the hospital looking for sick people, you're going to find sick people, And it's discouraging to see people say, oh, I was interested in buying this, and now I read these posts, I'm not interested, And then that's when you see a lot of people come in, no, I love mine, it's great, Again, Honda, what do we think is a reliable car? A Honda, right? They just recalled 700,000 cars. I say it all the time in my videos. No one's immune from recalls. But anytime, pick something. Before this 4xE, I owned a Cadillac Escalade. Supposed to be a quality car. You go on these forums, transmission shutters, lifter failures. They're putting new engines in at 30,000 miles. And I'll be honest, I had more issues with my Cadillac Escalade than I ever had with either of my two 4xEs combined. So, no manufacturer is immune from issues. How they handle it, I just think, again, some of the transparency, it's new technology. Combine the issues with the haters, right? Oh, it's a Barbie Jeep, it's electric, whatever. It's it's kind of oil and water, but it takes those people who enjoy it and understand it, I think, to kind of get on the mountain and yell, hey, these are good,
And what's funny, I mean, quick little funny story. When my Jeep went in the shop for the hood, the doors, and the tailgate, I wanted to rent a Chevy Bolt. and go to the rental place. They didn't have a Bolt. They had a Kia. I don't remember, one of the Kia EVs.
EV, okay.
And I, yeah, because I just wanted to experiment, and they were giving me a like for like, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, that'll work. But the air conditioning wasn't working. I drove around the parking garage, it wouldn't work. I pulled it back, went back in. I said, hey, the air conditioning's not working. He goes, well, it looks like you're getting an upgrade. And I ended up taking home a Genesis G80 electrified, which is a luxury vehicle.
Definitely an upgrade for sure.
Yeah, definitely an upgrade.
Yeah.
And it was, I didn't know how long it was going to take to do the body work. I didn't realize this was going to be like a 3-week period. So I only rented it for a week. Well, then I called and extended it, and I called and extended it, called and extended it. The last time I tried to call and extend it, they said, hey, we can't extend that one because it's got a recall, a safety recall for potential fire. So I had to take it back. And then I get to work the next Monday. I get an email on my 2016 Ford Transit minivan from our mechanic. He said, hey, there's a safety recall on your minivan. We've got to take it back. So, recalls happen.
Well, it's funny, and I know it's the same brand, but I got a Stellantis recall letter in the mail, and I think you commented on the little short video I did. I opened it up, and I'm like, oh, I joined the club with the 4xe recall, and I opened it, and it's for my Ram. I'm like,
that's about right.
And it's for some frivolous little thing, whatever. But again, remember, look at the airbag recall. Do you remember when that came out? The Takata airbags. That was a disaster.
Yeah.
So
that's still going on. There's still Takata recalls.
Right. So the other comments I have under recall is, it's interesting, and we see a lot of things. And Chris, you and I had a conversation this offline the other night. Should you charge if you're under the recall? And here, you and I talked about this. For one, I think it's crazy that you would announce that you're charging your vehicle on social media with an open recall.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee you the technology in these vehicles knows the date you sent that your vehicle went under recall, and are you level 2 charging? It knows, right? It knows.
Yeah.
You plug it into the diagnostics, it's going to tell you how many times you've charged, what level charged, what date you charged. So I would just be mindful, aside from the safety fact, of it all. If you're charging, for one, I wouldn't be shouting from the mountaintops that you're out there charging your Jeep. And I would keep in mind that if something were to happen, I would imagine that's data they're going to try and pull. Maybe I'm way out of line, but that's my 2 cents.
What kind of liability you're incurring by announcing that? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I had for what we should know about charging and what we should know about the recalls. Let's take a look.
Some people have had the question about, well, is level 1 different from level 2? No. If you blow up a balloon with your mouth versus blowing up a balloon with a 300 psi air compressor to the same size, the same amount of stored energy is in there, regardless of how fast it got there. So that's the way you have to look at that. And people are some dealerships are still convinced that eSave is a gas mode. And so some people they've been advising people to use eSave so they're not using the battery. That's not good information.
And the whole eSave thing, people think it's more efficient to charge. Again, that's a whole nother video.
Yes.
eSave, I think that there's a place for it, but
yeah,
you're not going to charge with your engine and electric. There's so much physics, right? There's so much loss.
Thermodynamics. Yeah.
No free lunch, right? You're not charging on eSave to use that electric mile,
It's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics.
Exactly. Right. Now, if you want to use it, so you can use the electric at some point, that's a different story, right?
Yeah. But people were thinking that they could still charge with eSave, and now they're not charging externally, and that's not
again, you're still blowing up a balloon.
But also, people are concerned about using max regen, but max regen is not charging the system. As soon as you slow down to a stop sign, you're capturing that energy, but that energy goes away as soon as you pull away from that stop sign.
So negligible too.
Yes, you're not charging a lot either way. And even if you put your foot on the brake, you're incurring the same recharge because of the blended braking system.
Yep.
That there's no difference. So.
All right, we got one more topic, but let's hit a few of these questions real quick. I did never expected this to be this. Thanks. I guess huge thanks to everyone for sticking around. We've had anywhere from 70 to over 100 viewers throughout this thing.
Oh my gosh! And I'll try to answer some of these after we get done too.
Yeah, so let's go through a couple of these, and then we'll have one last topic, which will probably be pretty quick. First time listener, what does F.O.R.M stand for? Fuel Oil Refresh Mode. You could Google that. You can check both Chris's channel as well as mine. You can search F.O.R.M on our channels. There's a ton of information. Chris, I really think we do a follow-up video just on F.O.R.M, but it's Fuel Oil Refresh Mode.
It's to protect the engine from oil dilution.
At no miles, I lost no miles when I converted from 35s. I lost 3 miles with the 3.5-inch lift. Currently at 24. Oh, interesting. You know, maybe it's more
air
wind than anything.
Yeah. The engineers found that the Sahara with the side steps, when they used to put side steps on the Sahara from the factory, which was slightly more efficient than without.
Yeah.
And that's all. I mean, not that the Jeep is an aerodynamic model
of barn, right?
But
that picture of the cow.
Yeah. But there is actually an efficiency difference. I would say that 3.5 is air buffeting up underneath. Get the metal cloak skid plates. I wonder if that would go away. I don't know.
Can't find home link on my 4x8. I assume you're talking about the garage opener home link in the visor. I don't know if it's standard on them all. I don't know. If you had it, it would be in your visor.
I wonder if that's a Sport. Does Sport have that?
Yeah, Sport might not have it. Yeah, you're right. Sport might not have it. Fuel oil refresh mode. He answered that question. I imagine there's an ambient temperature sweet spot for these cables and batteries. I would imagine so.
70 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. We're all on the same page there.
I knew that going in. Yep.
I don't know about Canada. That's a good question. I don't know. Everything's runs a little different in Canada. I can't answer that.
I don't know what the warranty even says.
I don't know. It's probably something you could fight for because it's such a known problem. It's certainly worth a call to the 800 number on Jeep. That's where I would start.
I just don't know, eh?
Don't you know?
That's my translation.
I can say that because my wife went to school or grew up in Wisconsin. Don't get me wrong. I love my 4B. Just don't like living under the threat of the unknown. I just want to know it's probably going to catch fire or not. Peace of mind I'm looking for. You can't argue that, right?
Nope.
All I can say is the percentage is super small, but to your point, the percentage is there, right?
And I've been accused of being incurring some or causing some panic there. You know, I made a post that said, don't drive the thing around with a check engine light because you don't know what that is.
Yeah, but you're being realistic though.
Some people were pointing the finger saying, you're causing panic. No, what I know is I've talked to 2 people that had actual fires and their Jeep worked completely fine. They parked it in the driveway and it worked completely fine up to that moment. There's no engine light that comes on and says, "Excuse me, sir, tonight at 6:35, I'm going to burst into flames." So every one of them worked fine right up until the point that they didn't. So
yeah.
And if the manufacturer, along with the NHTSA, have said don't charge, that's your best bet.
I've had issues, and all my friends have had these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You'll have people that.
So this recall. If you're talking about the wall box recall, or you're talking about I don't know what the recall for the Jeep has nothing to do with the Charger. There are recalls on some Chargers. I think they're the wall box ones. I'm not 100% sure for level 2 only. That I don't know.
But no, you shouldn't charge with level 1 either. Yeah.
I'm not as concerned about the recall. I'm concerned it hasn't been solved. This has been well over a year of a known issue. Won't trust the software. Yeah, it's interesting, right? You got to wonder, we've got ZB7, B9A, 04B, 95B. Are all of these essentially part of the same recall? Have we just been kicking this can down the road? I don't know.
And the letter, I was surprised when I pulled out my letter, it actually mentions B9A. Like 95B is B9A 2.0. And I was surprised to read that, but I think this is my opinion, expressing my opinion, that is my opinion alone, that I think there is an issue with these packs, and it's not uncommon for a manufacturer to have to replace a whole bunch of packs. And a couple of us have run some numbers and trying to speculate about how much that pack actually costs to manufacture. For like, if Jeep said, "I want one of these packs," what's their price tag? I don't think it could be over $3,500. But if they, yeah, I mean, if you figure industry,
remember, they're paying to ship them, then they pay the dealership.
Yeah,
I bet it's
$3,500 might be high, because it should only be around $125 per kilowatt hour, give or take. But once you consider shipping, labor, everything, if you said $4,000, and this is all speculative, I have no idea what the thing costs, but I wouldn't think that this battery would be enormously more expensive than other similar sized batteries. And but
it's north of that number. I know that.
Yeah. So if you consider, if it is more, then I think I did a conservative figure and still came up with between $600 million and $800 million to replace it. So if it's north of the numbers I was using, you're talking $1 billion price tag. So nobody wants that.
No, for sure not. Frank says if they can pull the data, they will. I'm sure, like we talked about earlier, if you're charging, right?
And if you bundled your homeowners and your auto insurance, if you don't think they will connect the dots, if your Jeep causes home damage and they can prove that you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing and you caused damage to your home,
I agree.
I'd hate to have a $30,000 garage replacement that had to come out of my pocket,
I guess will you be charging after the updated flash, knowing there are bad parts in the battery? Well, I guess if there's bad parts in the battery, I don't think you're going to be charging. You're going to be getting a new battery.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't on the 95 recall list until wasn't on the 95 recall list until this week. That is interesting.
They will add, and in my case, they will subtract. I got subtracted off the B9A.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I never talked to anybody else that had that happen. I could not get an answer from anybody at Jeep as to why.
But yeah, you got to wonder, and that's why people are like, "Well, I'm not on it." Well, you're not out of the woods if you're not.
That list is fluid, and I would say they'd probably do an investigation and find, okay, this group, and then, oh, wait a minute, now it's this group, and so. I've told people I would check that Mopar website about every month. Just set a calendar event.
I don't think you're going to see buyback assistance without a lot of kicking and screaming. At the end of the day, and I saw someone else saying they want to get out of their lease because of the, I don't foresee that happening. Again, at the end of the day, it's a recall. If buyback would be maybe if you keep hurdling stuff and you can't get it fixed, maybe then, but I don't foresee
state too. Like Florida, you may be able to get it bought back, but
yeah, you're right. It's going to depend on your state for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think my vote is no on this one? That thing is so mounted tight in there, and here's the reality. I hate to say it. I'm willing to bet a good proportion of these 4WDs on the road have never seen dirt. So them causing the issues, I would say probably not.
I haven't heard of anybody having a battery damaged off-roading. I haven't heard of anything like that.
I haven't either.
Matter of fact, that 4xe that flipped.
Went down the mountain.
Rolled down the mountain. The battery was in perfect shape afterwards.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. Yeah, here's another. I had mine for 2 weeks spent in the shop, and that's tough. You get a vehicle for a month, and it spends half its life in the shop. That's a tough one, and I don't say it. That definitely leaves a tarnished, taste in your mouth when you buy something like that. I respect that, but
And it seems like we have less stories like that over time.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And but I also think there's less stories like that, but there's also more of them on the road, right? So you have more opportunity for good stories too, you know.
Yes.
Paul, thanks for the comment. Greatly appreciate you tuning in. Frank, I'm sure, I can only imagine. I can only imagine that's a short staff number right now. I can only imagine.
And people are calling their dealerships and calling, Jeep. Really just take the information that's there and understand it. Don't charge, don't park. There's no remedy available at this time.
And sit tight. No parts. Be patient.
Yeah.
And here's another. I trade again. It sounds like you've had some bad luck, unfortunately, Novi. But you got rid of her 24 Sierra truck for similar issues. It's again no manufacturer immune.
Loss of motive powers not uncommon across manufacturers. So.
Yeah. Letters, I imagine, are still going out. I haven't seen a letter from my Jeep yet either, and so far I'm not on the recall list. So we'll see what happens.
Patrick can be our resident Canadian translator.
Yeah. Thank goodness for Chris's YouTube short that prompted me to call the dealership. There you go.
Yeah.
Not charging mine.
Oh, yeah, I know what that person's talking about. Yep.
But still charging with save on without regeneration. It's always on. Well, unless you have e-save on where it's charging back to the battery, I would turn that off. Otherwise, you are still going to be charging that battery like we talked earlier.
That sub-menu, that sub-setting is only when you're using e-save.
Correct.
If you got still charging with save on, that's an e-save sub-setting.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, it's probably true. Most Jeeps in general don't go off road.
I think we
probably fall into that category. I don't have the time, but
I think we had about 30% in our group.
Here's the thing, too. Like, I had a TJ. I mean, like, you're buying Wranglers that are damn near $70,000, and I guess I just don't have the cojones to bounce the thing around off rocks.
My wife's an accountant, and it drives her nuts. She's like, "Why don't you just buy an old one and fix it up?"
Right.
She just can't stand that I did it. She doesn't go with me anymore because she gets scared. I think from two perspectives: one, she's counting the dollars, and two, she's like scared.
Right.
And I wanted to get that sticker and put on the side that said, "Stop screaming! I'm scared too." And
let's see here. I have a lot of off-road miles on a Jeep, no problems.
Yep, I know.
Not a whole lot though. Highest 25% drained in I drained it in hybrid. Yeah, I still wouldn't charge with that system. Yeah. I think the reasons there are less stores. The dealers are getting better on extending how to fix these parts and easier to get. There's no question. The dealers are getting better. There's no question about it. Yes.
And parts availability is getting better.
Somebody said that's no lie.
Yeah.
Let's see. The flash doesn't trip a light for you after the flash. You're still going to park it back in the garage, knowing the parts inside the battery will be failing eventually. I see what you're saying. I don't know. I guess after the ZB7 and the B9A, I guess ignorance was bliss. But to your point, it's certainly in the back of my head. To answer your question, I'm not sure on that one. I don't know what the answer is on that one. I understand what you're saying now.
I'm in that place more now with this recall than I was before.
Yes, 100%.
It's just like this recall is like we didn't fix anything the first time.
Yeah. I know the wife the other day, she had the Jeep parked like right outside the garage. I'm like, why is that thing so close to the house? Back it up, So 2 Jeep badges. Yeah, those badges are cool. What Jeep does with that, those trail badges. Nice job.
I have 7. I'm trying to remember how many I have.
It's like a reason we've seen a delay in Gladiator 4B because they knew for some time, delayed it purposely to avoid less recall. I think 100%. I mean, we're all speculating, right? But I think you're onto something. I think they, why put this out and then you're going to recall them? Yep. And they've been quiet too. Like they said, they've teased the 25 Gladiator. Then it's just been, mum's the word. And the other thing I'm curious, you've got the you got the Wagoneer S, you got the Recon, and you've got and I know these are full EVs, and then you've also got the Charger Daytona, which is a full EV, and I know they're technically different batteries, but are they different technologies? Are they just bigger? You know, how are they pushing out the Wagoneer S? It makes you think about, you know, what technology do we have in that maybe we should have in the 4xe, or what do they know there that we don't know? And I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how that stuff pushes out too.
And I still think they're going to have to beef up the motors in the Gladiator. I don't think they can put out a Gladiator with a 3,500-pound tow rating and expect it to sell in the truck market.
Well, they have the Gladiator with the max tow, and it's like 5,000 pounds, but still a 6-cylinder motor.
I think they need to. I think they're having to upgrade that system, and you know, Jeep posted. They changed their banner on their Facebook page at one point, and it was the interior. I mean, a lot of us like nerded out on it. It was the
I remember exactly what you're talking about
of a Gladiator 4xe.
Yeah,
it had a max regen button. But we could tell it was a Gladiator by the reflection of the mirror looking back at the roll bar.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then it got pulled, and everything went quiet on the Gladiator 4xe. So
it totally did.
Yeah.
All the different manufacturers, some US, some Japan, Taiwan. That's the issue across the board. Maybe. Have we got confirmation that the new battery recall is the same as the old one? As the software updated the first one, still detect the issue past. There's no. If you're talking about the current recall, there's no confirmation about anything yet. No.
And it's you know, it's a flash. It's like a test. They're gonna test to see if those separators are breaking down. And the only thing I can imagine is somehow they're going to be able to see millivolts crossing cells.
Yeah.
And
it'll be interesting. But to your point, is this going to be a repeat of the ZB7? Are we all going to get this flash? You're going to say your recall has been updated and you're parking back in the garage, and now boom, you got a check engine. Like, well, shit, I am covered under this, you know, or I do have an issue. Now I do need a battery. So that I guess we're all gonna learn that one together. But
I have a feeling
I hope it's a little different than that. I really do.
I have a feeling if this doesn't fix it, I have a feeling Jeep's going to have to take some major steps.
Yeah.
Agreed.
This one is a great point. This is for all the haters, right?
Yes. Yes. I love pulling up with my badges for that reason.
Yes, exactly. It's great. That's a good one, Bobby. Tell me a defect kind of, so that's what we're thinking. Didn't Samsung sing self-supplier? That's a good question. I'm not sure on that. I can't talk to that.
I heard something about that, and I haven't nerded out enough on that to dig into that they were changing the supplier of their separator of the plastic sheets or whatever they are, polymer, space age polymer. I don't know what it is, but.
And just like we talked about, this is literally what you just said, Chris. You know, they got to come up with some sort of fix that we can sleep at night knowing that it's a fix and not just a software to tell us that it's broken or not.
I like his picture, by the way.
That's a cool shot. And Bobby, he agrees, right? Let the haters hate.
Yep.
So I'm just going to do we're going to finish up here. Our last topic is we call them tips and tricks. I'm just going to do a little shameless plug here again. Guys, join my right?
How do it's backwards in here. I can't figure out how to do that.
So huge thanks to if you're not part of my group, Jeeps on the Run, we've donated over $2 million of Toys for Tots, and we are raffling off a brand new 2024 Jeep Wrangler Sport with options, hardtop, nice wheels, a Sport S. And the dealership that we are connected with, Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, who I've been talking a little bit about over the course of the past hour and a half here, they 100% donated this Jeep to our cause. So the Jeep tickets are $20 a piece. We sell a maximum of 3,000 of them. Someone will win this Jeep on December 1st. You can check out the other videos on my channel. This will be the the fifth brand new Jeep that we've given away from this dealership. They have donated over $250,000 over the past couple of years to support this cause of mine. I've been doing this for 12 years, since the day basically my son was 6 months old when we started this at first, and now he's helps run the show. So it's a huge family commitment.
Off camera, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Is he still in there?
No, he bailed on me. He's my tech guy, though. But if you're in the area, join us. We have an after party. It's fun for all ages. We got Santa Claus. We got bands. We're going to pull the raffle ticket. This day, we will fill 3 semi-trucks full of toys, and then we'll spend an extra however much money that's raised that day, and we'll go shopping with the Marines and spend more money. Last year, we served over 40,000 families around Christmas time. So it's a huge event, northwest suburbs of Chicago, jeepsontheroad.com. You don't have to be present to get your to win the Jeep. So buy a ticket, $20. And huge thanks to Ray CDJR. 100% of that ticket funds goes back to Toys for Tots. We don't give the dealership a dime back for that Jeep, which is incredible. So I just wanted to plug that again. Thank you to anyone who can support it and maybe win a brand new Jeep. It's an absolute blast of the day. So Chris, maybe take the ride. Anyone who wants to take a ride, let me know. But it's worth a trip. We have people
not that far.
We've had people come from Florida, Tennessee, northern Wisconsin. It's an awesome day, and I guarantee you it's fun for the whole family. So
yeah.
Jeep actually came out last year, and they took pictures. Jeep social team was there, and we made it on their radar. They posted some stuff on their Instagram for us and stuff. So pretty cool.
Nice.
All right. Sorry, that was the last plug for that. Just something I'm passionate about. The last one here, I thought we'd do a little fun one. Tips and tricks, things maybe you did or didn't know about the 4xe. Just some bullet points that I thought we would talk about. Max Regen and how the braking system works. Chris, you talked that very well. I think charging tricks, we've talked a little bit about that earlier on charging, how to get the most MPGE, your drive modes, and how the 4x4 system affects your power and the drive mode and what mode you should drive in. I saw someone ask the question earlier. I apologize we didn't get to it, but did Jeep actually really say if you drive in full that you're going to get all your power versus two-wheel drive? So let's talk a little bit about that stuff as we wrap up here. And I'm just going to answer a couple of these quick questions before I jump in. Can a Canadian win your Jeep, eh?
He translated
the ticket. I don't see any reason why not. You're going to have to come get it, but I don't see any. Let me look and see what the lawyers had to say on the back of my ticket. If you look on the website, the small print is there. And do you have to live anywhere specific to participate? No, you can. In fact, we get people that come from all over the U.S. For this event. It is an absolute blast. So check it out, jeepsontherun.com. All right. So, Chris, you want to talk about the Max Regen and the braking system?
Well, and my favorite thing about Max Regen is that it remaps about the top 1 inch of the accelerator pedal or the gas pedal, for those of you that don't speak conversion. So you can vary that amount of regen. You can you have to spend a couple weeks retraining your foot to not just lift off all the way, but you can vary that. And Max Regen it's probably most beneficial on surface streets, not so much on the highway because you're not decelerating. I was watching some TikTok videos the other day. Somebody was saying how they can recharge their Jeep with Max Regen on, and there's just no free lunch when it comes to energy. That's not how it works. Some people think that it turns on some alternator that recharges the Jeep as you're driving. No, it's only when you're decelerating, because if you had like an alternator running, the internal spinning resistance of it would cause rolling resistance, which the vehicle would then have to fight. So Max Regen doesn't do anything to charge the vehicle. It just adds that deceleration force that you're feeling that's coming from the P2 motor generator in the transmission. And that's only when you're decelerating. But a lot of people don't like how it jerks. But if you learn to retrain your foot, it smooths that out a little bit.
It's funny because so many people when they first get it, like I hate this max regen. I feel like I don't know how to drive anymore. But it's interesting. I'll be on a long trip or something with my wife's Jeep, and then I'll get back in my truck, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta hit the brakes. It's interesting how quick you do get used to it. And I was driving this Silverado EV for a few days, and again, I did a video about living with an EV, and it was kind of trying to battle some EV haters, but it was pretty cool. They have a max regen button on the steering
wheel. Yes.
And the harder you squeeze it, I am not kidding you, you could do a panic stop and not touch the brake pedal. It was absolutely incredible. And that truck you could truly one pedal drive. And when you came to that stop, it actually held, like ours, it gets down to, I think it's 3 miles an hour and it lets you roll. You feel it let off. These actually, it holds it, and it holds the brake lights. In the corner of my eye, I'm seeing this. When max regen is on, the brake lights do come on. Chris, you do what on a total wormhole, and I love what you did in your Jeep. You put the little light seat in your rearview mirror. So I'm gonna go down a total tangent for a second. I remember as a kid, it's when the cars had the turn signal indicators way out on the hood, and they were like those fiber optic things.
Yes.
Cadillac. My mom had a Buick Riviera that had it, right? It would tell you your left turn signal, your right turn signal, and your high beams. But it also had a thing when you looked in the rearview mirror, you saw these two lights that would be up on the just like you did. So it's exactly what you did, and it's funny because I remember that.
Well, that was inspired by my dad's old Cadillac.
Okay, so same thing, right? And I saw it. I always loved those. Back in time, I'm like, oh my gosh, great. Yeah.
And the reason I put it back there was my attention to my rear view mirror is where I'm going to be looking to see what cars behind me are doing. And I have thought about wiring a second one to the dash.
So those who don't know what we're talking about, Chris wired up on his Jeep a red light that he put up in basically in the sound bar behind him, but he has a visual.
It's in the back roll bar. It's in the very back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He has a visual of it through his rearview mirror. So because the regen braking does light up the lights when it's on, but there is a point that it doesn't. It turns them off at a given point. So it's a good visual that you did.
If you're going downhill, it doesn't fire the brake lights.
Fair enough, yeah.
Which is, I don't understand. I can't get my head around why that would be. But
I don't know what the logic is.
When you're going down a long hill, if you let off the pedal, it is slowing down. Now it's not slowing down as much as it would on flat ground, so I kind of understand why it wouldn't. But I found a lot of odd behavior, discovered a lot of odd behavior because I can see it now.
You almost wonder if there's like a potentiometer in there that or an accelerometer accelerometer that's picking up on that to determine at what point they should light up or not.
Right. Yeah.
But so anyway, max regen, I mean,
and when you put your foot on the brake, of course, you're activating that same motor generator that's driving you forward. That's got 130 horsepower. It's a 3-phase AC motor, and it reverses the phases when you put your foot on the brake. So it's the same force, but it does seem like there's a difference in how much force comes. And I haven't got my head around this yet. Somebody mentioned it in a comment that they were seeing a difference in the meter on the that gauge on the right side of the dash.
Yeah.
And when they said that, I on the way home, I was experimenting with that. And I'm like, there is a difference, and I don't understand it yet. So there's something something odd there. But
yeah, no, it's interesting. So we talked about charging tricks to get the most out of it. Charge often. You know, if your vehicle's home and you're going, the thing, like, I tab it for us. We pull in the driveway. I mean, not right now, but we pull in the driveway and you plug it in. It's just it's habit. One of us plugs it in. Let's talk about drive modes. I mean, we've talked about that a little bit.
It's 2 hours. I can't believe these people don't have something better to do than to watch two nerds geeking out about the 4x8. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
know. My wife's probably in bed like, "What are you doing?"
Yes, mine is too. Anyway, dry boats.
I mean, I typically, I typically stay in hybrid mode just for the most part. But the one that, again, we talked about earlier, it really stands out to me, and it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you really wanted to have electric power for a certain such scenario. But when you're in and someone asked, Nobi, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. How do you turn it off? I think what you're referring to is that e-save charging. So when you in your screen, when you go under e-save, there's two little check boxes, and one says basically recharge. I forget the verbiage, Chris. Maybe you remember,
It's
but
in the
one basically says
hybrid screen or hybrid tab.
Yep.
And then e-save. Yeah, there's charge and hold.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you have the one that says charge, in my opinion, I would turn it off. You're burning more fuel to put that fuel into the battery to then use that battery power later. People were like, I've seen comments on my YouTube channel saying that, it increases my fuel economy. There's physics. There's just no logical way that can do that. The only reason that would make sense, I guess, is maybe you want to do that to fire the engine to get you out of F.O.R.M, or maybe you want to have electric power when you get to your buddy's neighborhood to show off or to go off road.
Which is what the save means. I'm saving the battery until later.
Sure,
I'm not saving gas.
Correct, right. And but you should know too, when you do the e-save, it still will let you go down to 95% before it holds it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people say, well, mine still uses it. Well, it'll stop at 95%.
And it'll shut off the engine. And even in charge, it'll shut off the engine until it stops.
Correct.
Until you get down to 95%.
Yeah. So, and then the 4x4 system, if you put the Jeep into 4 high, you get all of the torque and all of the power. 4 high auto, I should say. 4 high auto is new to a lot of people with Wranglers, and you can drive 4 high auto on dry pavement. Do not confuse that with standard 4 high. You'll be a sorry camper. But what's really interesting, and I haven't really been able to reproduce this, and I'm curious if anyone else had this issue. And Chris, you and I had this conversation last winter. I did not have this with my 21, but I noticed this with my 24. And my wife was traveling back from Wisconsin on we had a blizzard, one horrible snowstorm last winter, and she was in 4 high full time, and she was watching the battery gauge go up. And I wasn't with her at the time, and she called me. She's like, "It's really weird. I left with 20%, and I'm down the road. I'm at 50%, whatever it was." Yes. And I'm like, "Well, you must be an e-save, and why are you doing that? Turn this off." And she's like, she sends me a picture, and I'm in hybrid mode. I'm not in e-save, and I'm this.
Yeah,
I'm that.
I remember us talking about that.
And it's really weird. So then I said, "Well, put it in 4 high auto. What happens?" And it didn't charge.
Yeah.
Now I haven't, and you could watch it on the screen, where it shows what the power is doing, right? You could watch it actually going in versus coming out. And very rarely do we really have the true opportunity to drive at highway speeds in 4 high full time.
Right.
But the roads were snow covered. It was perfect scenario. There's 5 inches of snow on these back Wisconsin roads.
Right.
So I haven't had the time to try this again, but I'm curious if anyone else has seen this before, because it was super weird. And you could watch it when back to 4 high auto versus 4 high full time. It actually was charging the battery. To this day, I still don't know the why. But
yeah. I remember you talking about that.
But 4 high auto, you do get full power. Now, I don't know. Was that ever something that Jeep really fully committed to?
I got told that by the implementation engineer.
Yeah, and if you drive it, it's apparent, it's obvious. Yeah. But I don't know that was ever announced. The information
is it in the manual. I don't know if that's in the manual. I don't know.
It's not. I mean, I've looked again. At least I haven't. To be fair, I haven't even opened my 24 manual, but my 21 was was the normal manual of a JL with this 4xe addendum.
Yes.
And it was 6 pages of nothing. You
Yeah.
know, it was worthless, in my opinion.
But in all my tests, I have bared that out. I mean, it's true, and it wasn't just a traction issue. It was power not there in two wheel.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, kind of, if you think about it, look at the 392. You can't put it in two-wheel drive
Right.
because
Yeah.
of the power, right? So
And-
it kind of makes sense, you know.
The engineers debated not even having two-wheel drive in the 4xe. That was That was something that was part of their development process. That, I mean, even pretty late in the ball game, it almost came out without that.
Yeah. So that's all the topics. We can go through the final list of questions here, and huge thanks to everyone who spent over 2 hours with these knuckleheads.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So no, super, and let us know, like, is this something that, like, you know, Chris and I we battled this, and I brought this up to Chris. Like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? This might be a complete fail. I have no idea. You know, do we bring other people on? We've got contacts with some other Jeep techs. We've talked about other people we could bring on as guests. So let us know if this is something that would make sense for us to do again. Would you tune back in for another topic? You know, what topic would you want to see? Or just tell us, no, don't do this again. I don't know. Let us know. Because I enjoyed it. I think it was fun. It was something different. So let's look at the comments. If you try buying a Tesla, be careful. Yeah, my sister-in-law has a Tesla, and they had this issue with ghost braking. And she'd be going down the highway at 70 miles an hour, and it's like someone reached over and stabbed the brake pedal. And Tesla had a bunch of recalls and some, you know. Now the only difference with Tesla is most all the recalls are all over the air. At one point, Tesla was the #1 recalled vehicle, but I don't know if you could still consider it a recall when everything just pushed over the air. I don't know. At any rate, I think they got that licked by now, but it was an interesting situation. She was actually scared to drive it for a while because she's like, if someone's close to me, they're just going to rear end me, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a difference between actual braking and the max regen braking, if that's what you guys, yep, that's exactly what we're talking about. You need to get the paddle shifter kit too.
And my curiosity, so what I know about it's called blended braking system. You know, it decelerates with the motor and then blends over to the friction brakes. So you're not necessarily always putting the brake pads on when you're putting your foot on the brake pedal. And it's actually like a fly-by-stick brake pedal. It's not a fly-by-wire.
Right.
There's actually a pump in there to simulate what the brake pedal is supposed to feel like and everything. So you're not directly connected to the brakes. But I'm wondering if there has been an update at some point that difference that we're seeing in energy capture between max regen and putting your foot on the brakes, if it's actually blending a little bit earlier. And this is all speculation. I'm just, you know, stuff I think about. But I do know that if you're braking and the system detects wheel slip, it will totally bypass the motor and go to the friction brakes so that the analog brakes can kick in. Yep. Because the max regen and the deceleration from the P2 can't do that. So it's not an unsafe system, but I'm wondering if they've changed something and just not told us about that.
Did you see the comment the other day? I don't know if it was on your page or my group. Someone was braking hard, and I'm wondering if it was the scenario where the max regen and there was slipping, and then he kind of transfers to the actual, you know, hydraulic.
Right.
But there was a moment she felt that there was like
it let go.
Was really hard to push.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So you wonder, in that weird scenario, did it create a perfect storm where there was this transfer that she felt that, you know, which anytime you feel something weird in your brake pedal in an emergency stop,
or if you had a bad wheel slip sensor.
Right, could be, right.
You could do that. That could happen.
So I know, I tow my 4xe behind my RV, and I've got a brake system in there if the thing would ever come disconnected or when it's braking hard, it's, you know, but it's interesting because I was probably one of the first people to drag a 4xe behind an RV.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out, because normal brake system, when the system pushes the pedal inside the Jeep, is how it works. When the RV's braking, it pushes the pedal in the Jeep. Well, a normal Jeep, it's got hydraulic brakes, and it's got a vacuum system. So obviously when the Jeep's not running, the vacuum system's hard, and then the brake is hard to push. But they call them, what do they call them? Like active brake systems. So you got to set this whole thing up differently for the brake system to work properly, because it's this active system. Because if you think about it, they don't work off vacuum, even the normal ones, because you don't have a motor running when you're pushing the brakes, right?
Right.
So the whole big learning there as far as how to set that system up. But the braking system on the 4xe is definitely its own animal. There's no question about it.
Yeah. It's a bit of engineering genius itself that
for sure. Yeah.
And doesn't get enough attention.
And I was going to say, and that no one talks about it, but I don't think, like, to be fair, I push the brakes, my pedal stops.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of dorks out there like you and I that are like, push harder. I won't activate this, right? Like, you probably drive it the same way I do.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got. Am I crazy to think I get better miles being in hybrid plus manual mode? I get up to speed in on ramps and switch to manual mode. I don't know. I'm sure there's different ways of thinking it. It probably depends on.
I haven't been able to test that out. I
don't think you're crazy. I don't think there's.
If you're going by the gauge on the dash, yeah, it might tell you you're getting better gas mileage. But I've done so many experiments in different ways, and I've got all these documented on my channel, and I have found that little liar of a miles per gallon thing on the dash can't really be trusted. I mean, I've seen it wrong as much as 4 miles a gallon in either direction. So you're talking 8 miles a gallon. Yeah. So it may show it, just like some people think you don't lose gas mileage in e-save because they're going off that thing on the dash, and it can't calculate the added load. That it's not measuring gallons through a fuel line. That's all software. It's all programmed. And
so if you notice that in hybrid, when the engine is warm, the 4xe system will use engine more of the time when the battery level is below 15%. I guess I haven't noticed that. I don't notice an air to one side or the other depending on the battery level. I mean, regardless if you're driving it harder or pushing harder on the pedal, maybe at that point, or
if they've got some battery degradation happening.
Maybe
mine was doing changes like this when my battery was degrading. Like its performance declined through the percentages.
And your J-scan would tell you that battery degradation.
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah. If you could read that, and I wasn't as much into reading my state of health at that time until some other people called my attention to it. And but I would be curious. I'd like to see your battery state of health and see if you're experimenting or experiencing something like that.
So this one's an interesting one, and actually one we should have talked about and didn't. So Frank, even if you're not in F.O.R.M and you have 95% electric and you run out of gas, you're still kind of SOL. You'll get the red turtle. So you can. I always give my wife a hard time because she's like, "Oh, I'll get gas tomorrow, but I'm on fumes, but I'll make it to work. I'll fill up on my way home." But there is a scenario where even with enough electric to power the Jeep, if you don't have, because you got to remember it's a hybrid, not electric vehicle, so it needs both. It needs both. If you were dead on gas and only electric, and you were in a situation where you had to give it full acceleration or to get out of the way, and there wasn't enough gas to start the engine, right? You'd be in trouble. So even with full electric power and no fuel, there's a red turtle that comes up, and it will put you in limp mode. So
although Nina Barlow won the Rebel Rally last year in this scenario, she crossed the finish line after running out of gas in electric mode. I don't know what kept it from going into turtle mode, but she won that race.
Okay. Well,
but like you're saying, most of the time
I wouldn't count on it. How's that?
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it. I don't know what transpired for that to happen, but
yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Or
Yeah.
maybe if it was in 4 low and knows you're off road, maybe it's different.
Oh, that may have something to do with it. I'm sure they were in full part time.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But to answer your question, you're dead in the water. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't count on it. We got a few more here. I've seen mine change at 4 high and 4 service roads and the BDR. Not sure what that was in regards to what BDR.
I wonder if that was at the BDR. Bad is that Badlands? Is that what that is?
I've never heard of it called Badlands, but I've seen mine charge in 4 high. I read change. Yeah, so maybe I don't know. I don't know what drove that charge. I know I charged quite a bit when in 4 low, so I'm not alone. There's something there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's they know if you're in 4-wheel drive 4 low, you're not in it for economy, right? So maybe it defaults to charge. Here's the thing. This is the stuff I wish that was in the manual, right? This is the stuff that I wish there was something we could read,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both. Great information. Time is perfect. I'm home. Very forward. Love more topics.
Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate your advocacy, forward dedication, good information. Well, we thank you guys for watching, because otherwise this would be Chris and I talking to ourselves. So thanks for.
And I'll translate that last one. Thank you for being huge nerds.
Yeah. Pretty much. 10 miles all electric. I'm at 10 miles all electric.
You have a battery degradation issue.
100%. Yeah.
Have you had your 04B or B9A recalls done? And if not, I would get them done
yesterday.
Yes. 6 months ago.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do this again. Do it again. Lots of information. More, please.
Don't you tell me what to do. You tell me what to do. I know what I want to do. You're not the boss of me.
Anything more? Thank you. Well, thank you guys for real. This was a total shot in the dark. So having a future live session DY maintenance tips would be cool. That'd be good. If you guys got comments offline, you can email me at mike@jeepsontherun.com.
To get out of a seat and go out in the garage with a phone. Good golly, kind of.
They talk, guys. Mike, I tried to buy the BIC. But it says the bottom must be a U.S. resident. Sorry, that's what the lawyers say. So maybe you've got some residents in the U.S. that you could they could buy the ticket for you. I appreciate you looking and your support, though. 91%. Last month, I'll do more experiments. Hybrid mentioning me earlier. Yeah, I would.
Mm-hmm.
She won this one in the Gladiator. Yeah, I knew someone that was driving the new Ram RHO. I'm part of the group called Midwest Media Association, and she was part of it. So it was kind of fun. I talked to her at an event we did at Road America a few months ago, and hearing her story about this rally it's incredible. I mean, it's a feat. Very cool.
Like three or four times now. So 2 times in a 4xe.
Appreciate just learning all this. Thank you. Jeep suggests a software fix in the works for the B95B recall. How can I? Well, so that's what we talked about earlier, right? That's what we're kind of afraid of. Is this software just going to tell us we have bad batteries? I don't know.
Can't fix hardware with software.
Correct. But right. So time will tell us. So that's the thought is this kind of be like this ZB7 where this is going to add the intelligence to tell us that we have bad hardware. I guess time will tell. Oh, backwoods discovery routes. Learn something new every day. I was referring to you talking about charging. That I got. Yep. So interesting. So I'm not alone on that. I'm curious. What year is your Jeep? Because Chris, I don't think you had that.
No, that's a 24 thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I am assuming. Good talk. Good listen. Mine says battery save or battery charge. It's on battery save. That's where you want it.
And that only applies in eSave. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's only correct. Only applies for eSave. So that is, I think that's a wrap, guys.
Yeah.
We appreciate your you guys hanging out with us for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I thought this would be an hour long. Boy, was I wrong.
Mm-hmm. And we were pushing.
Yeah, we clipped right through it. Or at least it felt like we did. So yeah, you can still leave comments in these videos. You can email me or Chris. Let us know some ideas you got. You can find me on Facebook. I'm pretty public on Facebook myself. You can find me on. So I run Jeeps on the Run Facebook group, as well as the 4xe enthusiast group, and then obviously Chris runs the 4xe fan page. And then I know some of you guys are watching this on Jeeps on the Run, and some of you guys are watching this on the 4xe fans. So I had this also streaming on Facebook and Instagram, so I got all these screens going. So depending where you're watching it, thanks for chiming in. But yeah, I think this was enjoyable, Chris. Maybe we'll make this a monthly thing or whatever it works out to be. But and hopefully we'll see you guys, some of you at Jeeps on the Run on December 1st. It's a ton of fun, and
like everybody else, we take tips, right? It's 25% standard, or is that 25% zero? Dang it!
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So and yeah, Chris, thanks. I know I was bugging Chris all last week. I'm like, hey, we got to connect. We got to try this and make sure this goes off without a hitch. And I feel like it did. I feel like let us know too. Was video quality okay? Was audio okay? It seems okay here, but I'm looking at it on my own screen. So
yeah.
Should I put it on low charge? Someone's asking, still asking a question here. Should I put it on low charge? I don't know what I would. No charging, just no charge.
No charge.
No charging. Assuming you're under the recall, right? But
yes, because a lot of people think every 4xe is on this recall. And it's not.
Not every Jeep is under the recall. So if yours is not under the recall, I guess you are free to move about the cabin,
And this is the first time it's been the Grand Cherokees involved in this too.
Yeah, which I find interesting. It's got to be the same battery. I wonder what drives that, So
see way more problems out of the Wrangler. Very few out of the Grand Cherokee.
Which is weird.
Same battery, but different configuration. And I don't know.
All right, guys. Well, Chris, thank you. I think this was good. Thanks everyone for the feedback and questions. And like I said, hit us up, let us know some ideas, and we'll put another one together and see what happens.
And by the way, I'm not this fat. The camera adds 10 pounds, and I have 4 cameras on me. So just so everybody knows that.
All right, guys. You guys all have a great evening and happy Jeeping. Spread the word. 4xEs aren't the evil, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.